Hello again this week, beautiful listeners and watchers.
Hello.
Uh, Now, you know that our mission is to help businesses, help organizations thrive. We want to make sure that the business is thriving, the team are thriving, and that you too are thriving as the business leader. Because so often you're kind of put last, you're put to the bottom of the pile, and we want to make sure that the business, the team, and you are equally prioritized, my friends. And for every level of success in business, in life, there's actually a formula that can be followed. There's always a blueprint. There's always clues to success, as they say. And when we can be aware of what those clues to success are, or be proactive in reaching out for and searching for the formula for success, it means that you can accelerate your growth. And you know, we're all about smart growth in business. We're all about people leadership for peak performance. And I mean, that is literally working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So we thought, why not share with you what we believe to be a very important, critical formula for success when it comes to thriving. In order to do that, I want you to think about how long you've been in business. Now, a lot of the listeners and viewers, you've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or perhaps you're a business leader. So the business has been around for some time and you've probably been a leader for quite some time.
Mm.
What we find is there's a trajectory, there's a link between how long you've been in the business or in the role and your success. So success could be revenue success. It could be profit success. It's cash flow. It could be going on amazing holidays, buying properties, putting your kids through school, growing your team, business expansion. You know, when we're talking success, we're talking holistic success across all areas of business and life. And typically what happens, the longer you're in business, the more successful it becomes. Congratulations, by the way, because there's lots of trials and tribulations for you to get there. And there comes a tipping point. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it's like I've got an invisible whiteboard in front of me. I'm drawing this up. There comes a tipping point on the trajectory of success where all of a sudden there's questioning. You
Mm.
know, you've had to work really hard to get to where you have. Chances are you've had to hustle and unresourcefully hustle. You've had to work some long hours. You've really had to make some sacrifices to get to where you are today. And it leaves business owners questioning, sometimes to the extent questioning, is it even worth it? Is it even worth it?
Mm.
Or at least wondering what's next. And that what's next could be what's next for the business, or it could be what's next for you personally. Could be what's next for the team, but oftentimes it's what's next for me because I'm not
Mm.
sure if I want to keep going the way that I am. And what we know to be true is that what got you here to this level of success is not going to be what takes you to your next frontier of growth because you still have goals. You know, you're not ready to walk away and give up. But we have to look at this. We call this the perturbation point. It's actually a growth set point in that there's one of three things that can happen at this point. And we're going to take you through why you're at this point. If you're listening and resonating, it could be because you're at the perturbation point. Or if you're not fully resonating, maybe you're not quite there or you've just come through it, still listen because this can be helpful to make sure that you avoid falling into this trap. Now, perturbation is uncomfortable, it's discomfort, but on the other side of that can be exponential growth. And as I said, there's three things that can happen, which we're going to take you through. But before we take you through what could happen, Nessa, I'd love for you to share,
Mm.
why do business owners and leaders even get to this point? I mean, they've been in business for a while, they've got great success. So why does this perturbation point happen where they start to question, why am I here? What am I doing? Or what's next?
Yeah, great question. And look, I really think there's a few things that are going on simultaneously. So we have this sense that even though we've got a team, you still, as the leader of the business, feel like you are on Juggle Street, right? You're everything to everyone. There's so much on your plate. There's that, and this discomfort is, I have had success. I have been able to achieve these results, and I'm tired and I don't want to keep doing this for another 5 years, 10 years, whatever that is. And so when we look at Juggle Street and we look at, what's going on around you, it's your team are doers, they're not decision makers. They really are reliant on you in order to be able to achieve the outcome. So you've got to be there, or you feel you have to be there. When you step out of the business, they're constantly ringing you, texting you, getting in touch with you, asking a question that they can solve, that they know the answer to, but they continually draw on you. So that's one of the key areas that we notice. Another one we call business chaos. So this is where sometimes a business grows at a rate that is so fast that the structure isn't in place to help support that. So we're reinventing the wheel all the time. It's that chaotic sense of, I've just got to get through today. I've just got to get through this week. I've just got to get through this busy phase. And then I can sit down and step back and, plan out what's going to happen next. Because there is that lack of planning. The cash flow is up and down. There's a sense that you are working really hard and doing great things. And then you'll hit a point where your cash flow you're going, oh my God, why am I tapping into my funds now? Why am I having to support this business? I just want profits to be really clear across the line. And I think that, when we're stuck here, when we're in this chaotic sense, there's a sense of not understanding or knowing what to focus on first to get us out of that. So we're just sucked into the vortex, into the whirlpool, and we just keep going and reinventing the wheel every day, knowing in our head that something has to change. And this is the perturbation point, right? This is the point where we're saying, I can't, again, I can't keep going at this pace. And because the other impact of that, obviously, for you if you're feeling like this, and if this is what's going on in your business, you're just stuck in the busy trap. It's just that the hamster wheel, you're going, but you actually don't feel like you're going on any kind of direction forwards. And so it's a critical point to be able to sort of go, whoa, something's got to change here, right? And so when we're in this kind of situation, you mentioned earlier the 3 different outcomes that could happen. Let's lead to that now, Nick. What are those 3 different outcomes?
I also just want to say there, really important points that you've talked through. And it's not just you that will be stuck in the busy trap, your team will be stuck in the busy trap. And that just adds to the chaos and the feeling of Juggle Street. So it's so connected. When you stay in that place of Juggle Street, business chaos, busy trap, your team are in those states, what's going to happen is your business can go backwards. If I had a whiteboard in front of me right now, in front of you, I would be drawing a dotted red line back down the graph because it's not sustainable. Your team are going to end up being disengaged. They'll have enough of it. They're going to want to walk away as well. That's going to put holes in the delivery for your clients. You are going to be dropping more balls. Your team will be. The impact on your clients, the impact on your people, the impact on your can't talk so many P's. The impact on your profit is going to, it's quite serious. You will end up resenting your business. You potentially will end up hitting burnout wall, as your team may as well. And ultimately, you're probably going to walk away from the business. And, it's interesting, 80% of businesses fail at the 20-year mark. 80% of businesses fail at the 20-year mark. This is beyond, we're out of startup phase. These are businesses that know a thing or two about their market, about their clients, about building a great culture and business. And yet, due to poor cash flow management or no strategy, due to not being able to upskill their staff appropriately, and this is a clincher, due to being stuck in the day-to-day weeds of the business, they're the 3 main reasons businesses fail.
Yeah.
And so that is exactly Juggle Street, business chaos, and busy trap. That's what we're talking about. This is not just our observations that we've seen. This is the data, the research also says that these are the reasons that businesses are failing. And no wonder, because when you're over it, you don't have the energy and time like Ness said. So that's one thing that's going to happen. One of 3 options. You hit your perturbation point and things go backwards, team leave, you're leaking, and you walk away from the business. The second thing that can happen is you kind of go, it's like what we talked about in episode 1. If you didn't listen, go back and listen. When you're in that growth phase, it's like, good enough. yeah, good enough is enough. Or if you're in build phase, it's, "Oh, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand." We'll just suck it up and we'll keep going as is. And so the business plateaus. It's not, it doesn't grow. Eventually, if you plateau too long, you're going to end up going backwards. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So you can either plateau. But, we don't want to be all doom and gloom in this episode.
No.
And there is a solution, which I'm going to hand back to you again, Ness,
Yeah.
because there is actually a way to get off Juggle Street, out of busy trap, to not be in business chaos. And when you can embrace those principles, which Ness will share with you now, then you can actually, have that trajectory of growth, go on that next growth curve to achieve the next iteration, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we want for you. We want you to we definitely don't want you to go backwards and give up. We know that the plateau, that can be about exhaustion, but the next frontier is around solving the problems that have got us to this point and doing something different in order to get a different result. So when we're talking about Juggle Street, what we want to do is move towards peak performance. Now, what's included in peak performance, or how do we get to peak performance? Really, it's about 3 key areas that we're looking at in order to move the dial to get out of that Juggle Street place. So the first one would be looking at the culture that you've created within the business. So as the business owner, the senior leader in the business, you are the one who sets the culture. But it can't just be you alone. The culture is made up of the people who live and breathe the vision, who bring their behaviors into work, who are either growth mindset or what's the word I'm looking for?
Fixed mindset.
Fixed mindset. Thank you. So the culture is around the vibe that people want to be a part of, that they're excited to come to work, that they're enthusiastic, and they believe in why you started the business and what you do and what you achieve in the world. Just briefly, the other area that we would really want to look at to move from Juggle Street over to peak performance is this area of operating rhythms. Now, operating rhythms is things like the structures that you have in place, the checklists, the KPIs. This is where we stop reinventing the wheel day in, day out and reworking, because that is so costly to your business. And we start to say, okay, it's going to take more time right now to work out the process and structure around how we do what we do. But in the future, it's going to pay off because I'm going to be able to train people so much more quickly. And I'm not needed. My knowledge base isn't needed on a day-to-day basis in the business because I've got that out of my head and people are starting to follow the structures to make it happen. And then the third area that we know can make that big difference between Juggle Street and peak performance is all around skill set. So if you've got a cultural match in your team, we need to make sure that they have skills that match that as well. So what are you doing to develop your team, to coach your team, to mentor your team, to really help them feel empowered to be the very best that they can be and to buy into it in a way that they're confident they can deliver on those results? And, side note here, the fact that if you've got operating structure, operating rhythms in place, that's going to help them to build their skill set and their confidence. So these all interrelate to each other. So that's one way that we can move into peak performance, which gets us into that next level of growth. If we look at the business chaos, what we want to do is shift from business chaos over to smart growth. And so in order to do that, we need to step back and plan, not just us, but we need to make sure that we're sharing this structure with our teams, that they've bought in, they understand what's the destination that we're driving towards here. And therefore, what do I need to do this week, today, in those micro moments of decisions about what I have to focus on? We're identifying and mapping out the week ahead, the month ahead, the 90 days, the 6 months, the 12 months, so that what we're focusing on is moving us closer to where we want to be. And that chaotic craziness has gone because I'm actually focusing on things that matter and are important. The other key area here is sales. We need to make sure that the business is continuing to bring customers through the door and retain the customers that we have. So what's the skill set for you and your team in relation to sales and making sure that, that's at the backbone of the business? And of course, my high horse, it's about profit. So we can't just look at the metrics around, like we have to know what goals we're going for financially. We need to know what our turnover is. We need to know what our targets are. But importantly, we actually really need to make sure that we're making a profit, because there is no point in having a business that's turning over multi-million dollars if your expenses are multi-million dollars. Like that's just not economical sense, or, just makes no sense at all. So when those three care areas are working, then we are moving towards smart growth. And so now we get this combination of peak performance, smart growth, and we're ready to build that momentum to head up into the trajectory. And if you're watching, or if you have the imaginary board, I'm pointing upwards. So that is where we're going instead of falling back and plateauing. Is there anything I've missed, do you reckon, Nick?
No, I think that that is a really great explanation of how to get off Juggle Street and business chaos. And also a reminder that when you have that place of smart growth, when you're leveraging smart growth, when you do have peak performance, that is the formula. That is the only way that you can get off busy trap. And if you're watching, I'm like making some serious eye contact with you now. So the only way that you can move from busy trap to time freedom is to have smart growth and peak performance. And I think where a lot of business owners and leaders kind of, well, I'm going to say fail. I don't mean this in a judgmental bad way, but what we do is we're like, oh, we're so busy. We don't have time to think about me. We don't have time for me time. I mean, how many conversations have we had with business owners? Like, I don't have time for me time. And, we kind of get it, because the reason that you don't is because you don't have peak performance in the team. So then you're relied upon in the business, and you're not leveraging smart growth. So if you do want some time freedom and have that holiday and be switched off, you've got to have these things pumping in your business, because it's actually the only way that you can get there without everything falling over.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is where we want to support you to go. And that's what these podcast episodes are all about, giving you tips and tricks and techniques in order to be able to move towards peak performance, smart growth. So as we wrap up today, Nick, and we do our actionable action.
Yes.
What do you think is the key action our listeners and viewers can take in the next 24 hours that's going to help them to create this shift? If they're in the perturbation point and everything you said at the beginning is resonating, how do we make sure we don't go backwards? How do we make sure we don't plateau? And how do we start getting on that trajectory upwards again?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to really reflect on and consider what has come up for you listening to this conversation, because chances are there was something that Ness and I shared. There might be many things, but there would be at least one thing where we shared a certain challenge or a point where maybe you had a bit of a little sick feeling in your tummy or a butt clench moment, or you're like, oh gosh, I relate to that so much. So think about what that thing is, because that could be what's holding you back from that next growth curve. And as Ness said, if you don't pay attention to that, because it's really easy to do avoidance mode, bury your head in the sand, go, it's good enough. But if you don't pay attention to that and put something in place to, turn that around, that could be the little thing that becomes the big thing, or maybe it's already a big thing. And so first actionable action is pay attention to what came up for you. What is that thing? If there's multiple, which there might be, because, we talk through different challenges around people and sales and profit, then kind of pick what you think the number one thing is that's really holding you back at the moment, or having the biggest impact. If it's profit, that makes sense. That's having a big impact, because you could be nailing your sales, but you don't have any money in your back pocket. So pick what that one thing is. And that's what we want you to focus on to find a solution for. We have some strategies to help you in each of those 4 key areas. So if you haven't already, we've got the 60-second survey that gives you our smart growth blueprint. And we're really passionate about sharing this because you may have heard us say already, and if you haven't, I'll say it again. It's literally the strategies that our clients are using and loving. And what I mean by strategy is we have, if profit was the thing that you're like, feel a bit sick about, Ness has created a really simple profit planner. And if you do the 60-second survey, you'll see what phase of smart growth you're in, but you'll also then, that's going to prompt us to email you the profit planner. You'll automatically get that.
Yeah.
If the profit wasn't the thing that got your butt clenching, maybe it was team, we've got a team code guide, a best practice team communication code. So it's PDF. You can have a look at it and go, right, what's missing from what I'm doing to help create that empowered team? If it was sales, if you're feeling that you're a bit reactive, I've shared a strategy to double your productivity in 1 hour for sales. Like, it's really good. It's really, really good.
It's really good.
It's really good. And what was the other thing we had in there? Oh, and prioritizing.
Yeah. To help you prioritize.
Yeah. So if you're like, oh, I'm winging it, like I'm getting to the end of the week, I feel like I've done so much, but I feel like I haven't done anything. You know that feeling?
Yeah.
We've got a really simple tool that's going to help you and your team prioritize. So all of those tools might be handy for you, but there might just be that one thing. So in summary, you're going to reflect on what was the thing that stood out. You're like, oh, I've got to get that sorted. Oh, Oscar's joining us. There you go. He's like, yeah, he's championing you. And then
Oscar's a dog.
Oh, Oscar's one of my dogs, one of my many dogs. No, not that many. Thanks for clarifying that, Ness. So reflect. What was the biggest point that you needed to focus on? And then use one of these tools and strategies. You don't have to use what we're giving you. We're just giving it to you anyway. But find something that you start doing differently.
I love it so much. And of course, a link to that Smart Growth Blueprint is down below in the show notes. So as we wrap up for another week, we want to thank you for listening, watching, finding a way to get into your ears. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you later.